to answer that when we pause. So we're gonna be covering key government benefits. Not every government benefit, but SSI, SSDI, and Medi-Cal. A little bit on food stamps, but not really other benefits today. The purpose and use of special needs trust to keep all those benefits. And then what in the heck is a pooled special needs trust? I know many of you have not heard of it before. Some of you have, but it's always good to have a reintroduction. And then we can drill down a little further and talk about what do we offer here at JLA Trust, particularly with future funded accounts. And then a little bit about CalAble, which are tax advantaged government programs available online only through the California Treasurer's Office. Okay, so what is the main problem we're trying to solve? Sometimes in Silicon Valley, they call this, what is the pain point? So how can a person with disabilities get and keep as many government benefits as possible, and at the same time be able to receive funds typically from a family inheritance or sometimes a legal settlement? So government programs can be very complicated. I think as most of us have had the unfortunate personal knowledge of finding out for our loved ones. So they often have asset limits, except they don't always call them assets, they call them resources. And then income limits. And income means money coming in on a monthly basis. And there's two kinds of income. We'll get a little more in depth on that in a minute. But there's earned income from some kind of work and unearned income, where money is coming in not from employment. So it's not enough just to have a documented certified disability. You also have to meet quite often these asset and income criteria. And government benefits, even though they're really important and vital to having a full life, unfortunately, the federal poverty level is extremely low and unrealistic, especially in California and even more so in Southern California. So these are the brand new numbers for 2026. So 100% of the federal poverty level for one person is, a measly $15,650. So there's no way you could have enough money for rent and food on $15,000. So that's where having access to private funds from a family could become extremely important, especially as family members age and either get disabled themselves or pass away. So on the left-hand side of this chart are government benefits where they're going to look at your income level. And on the right-hand side are government benefits where they're not going to look at your income level. And people with disabilities, as they get older, often can be entitled and eligible for all four of these government benefits. So SSI, Supplemental Security Income, that's a program of the federal government through Social Security. And we'll get into more details in just a minute, but it's difficult to get SSI. Typically, you're going to have to make that you're not able to work, what the government calls sustainable gainful activity. And you're going to have to make that case with medical documentation. And then there's Medi-Cal. In California, we call it Medi-Cal, but actually, federally, it's the Medicaid system. I always like to say in California, we do things a little differently. We name things a little differently. So in California, the state of California contributes a lot of money beyond the federal share. So that's why it's called Medi-Cal, and why if you move to a different state, you might experience a very different healthcare experience on Medicaid. SSDI, that's Social Security Disability Insurance. So that's really designed for someone who's been working for a while and has earned enough credits and then becomes disabled. So when people say they're going on, typically that's what they're referring to, SSDI. And then most of us, of course, know about Medicare. That is our federal program for health insurance for people over the age of 60. Some younger people with disabilities also qualify for Medicare. So we have many clients in their 40s, 50s, and beyond who actually are receiving all four of these benefits at the same time. So there's a very important benefit that many parents do not know about, and it's super, super helpful to know about it. It's called the Disabled Adult Child Program, also known as Childhood Disabled Beneficiary. This is a program from the Social Security Disability Insurance Program, SSDI. And basically, what this program is saying is if there was a parent of a disabled individual and the parent worked, let's say, 30 years, the parent retires at age 70, and the parent starts to get Social Security retirement. If they have an adult disabled child who became disabled before the age of 22, that child can get this benefit based on the parent's earnings. So let's do a little case example because I know it's a lot of numbers and it's confusing. So let's say John is the father. John turns 70 and retires, and he starts getting $1,200 a month of Social Security retirement. He has a daughter named Debbie who is on the spectrum. Debbie was diagnosed at age 5, and Debbie is now 40. John is going to get that $1,200 a month, and Debbie is going to get 50% of that while John is alive. So under this example, Debbie will get $600. And then when John passes away, Debbie will be able to get 75% of John's Social Security retirement. So that's going to be $900. So when a parent goes to retire and start taking Social Security, there's going to be a little box. Do you have an adult disabled child? And the wording is so confusing that many parents with disabled children do not click the box. But it's important to click that box. You're still going to have to get a medical redetermination, even if that adult child is getting SSI. But it's an extremely helpful benefit, cash benefit. And then after that adult child, after Debbie is getting SSDI for 24 continuous months, Debbie is going to be able to get Medicare, even though she's only going to be 42 years old. So a super helpful benefit to know about. Okay, what is SSI? Supplemental Security Income. So these are the new numbers for 2026. Somebody can earn up to $1,690 from employment and still be able to receive SSI. The maximum most people are going to be get who aren't blind is going to be $1,233.94. So most of that is going to be the federal dollars for, and then California supplements it at $239.94. Now, the big catch with SSI, of course, is you're only allowed to have $2,000 in the bank or in any other kind of assets. So that would be checking accounts, savings accounts, stocks, bonds, gift cards, gold, things that can easily be turned into cash. But the great thing about SSI is you only have to be getting a very small amount of SSI, $1, and you will still be able to get Medi-Cal. So it's what the government calls a categorical linkage between SSI and Medicaid. So, and what this means is this particular type of Medicaid in California, Medi-Cal, you don't have any co-pays and you don't have any share of costs. So it can be very difficult to get SSI. It can be difficult to keep SSI, but it's an extremely useful benefit. So if you haven't yet applied and your adult child is over the age of 18, you can start the application online, but you will have to complete it in a Social Security office. Some of the rules have changed about ID verification. So more and more you have to do things online. And then there's other tasks that you now have to go do in the field office. The good news about the field offices is you can now make appointments ahead of time, just like the DMV. So if you're applying for SSI, and remember, this is for an adult over the age of 18, what are they allowed to own? And this is only for the adult child, not the parents. So that adult child can actually hold title of the house that they live in. They can have one car. They can have a small life insurance policy. They can have burial plots. They can have any amount of household goods and personal effects. But remember, they can't have any more than $2,000 in assets in terms of cash, in terms of, things that could easily become liquid assets. And then how does the SSI define income? So you can see here the different definitions. So unearned income is any kind of cash or gift that the SSI recipient receives. So that could be anything from pensions, alimony, child support, legal settlements, payment from other programs. So if you're getting unearned income that the government knows about, you will lose your SSI dollar for dollar after the first $20 are excluded. So this is why parents can't just give their adult children with disability money, because if they just give them money as a gift, that counts as unearned income. Now, if somebody is working in some form of employment, whether it's self-employment, independent contractor, W-2 work, the first $65 is excluded, and then your SSI benefits are reduced $1 for every $2. So what this means is you can still work part-time and get SSI. So there's a myth out there that you cannot work and have SSI. So you can, but there are limits. Now, when we get to the end and we talk about CalAble, that's definitely a way of being able to work even full-time and still keep your SSI. So SSI has this really outdated and extremely difficult rule called ISM, In-Kind Services and Maintenance. Basically, the idea is the government is saying, if somebody, including your family, is helping you to pay for certain expenses, we're going to reduce how much we're going to give to you every month. And the reduction is 1/3 of the federal share of SSI plus $20. So for 2026, that comes to $342 reduction. So if a family member or anyone else pays for mortgage payments, property taxes, rent in some cases, heating, fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, and garbage removal, that SSI check will be reduced by 1/3 of that federal share plus $20. So the rules changed last year. It was really crazy. They used to say if anybody else bought you food, either groceries or restaurants, you would lose 1/3 of your federal share of your SSI check. But thank God that got changed. So that's a big help. So the rent subsidy definition changed. So basically, if the rent is too low, you could still lose that 1/3 penalty. But if you're paying more than 1/3, which is what the government calls presumed market value, then you will not have the reduction. So I have added some tips this year. So most of our adult children who are regional center, mental health issues, other disabilities or chronic illness continue to live at home after the age of 18 and they qualify for SSI. So what are parents supposed to do? So there's really two alternatives. One is the fair share agreement, where the adult with disabilities pays a proportional share of the household operating expenses. So the way you would work this out is figure out what are the total household bills divided by the number of living there, and that's how you get the fair share. The other alternative is to have a rental agreement. And I encourage people to actually do the rental agreement because I think this is helpful with other government benefits. And basically what it's saying is after your kid is 18, you should start charging them rent. So you should actually draw up a lease and have a formal landlord-tenant relationship. And then the adult child pays a market rate for the room rental. So that is what is recommended. If you can't afford the fair share until you get eligible, you can create a loan agreement with an IOU. And again, you want to put this in writing. So if any government agencies ask, you'll be able to have a written document and not just a handshake. So what is Medi-Cal? As we mentioned before, that is California's Medicaid health insurance program. And it pays for all kinds of medical care, as you might expect, doctor visits, hospitalizations, also medical equipment, things like wheelchairs, ramps, insulin pumps, prescription medication, as long as that's on the formulary, also end of life. Now, with Medi-Cal in California, there's been a lot of changes the last few years around assets. For a long time, you could only have $2,000 in assets. That got increased to $130,000. And then last year, in 2025, the asset limit was completely removed. But now it's back in 2026. So to get Medi-Cal in California, you have to be low income and you have to have below $130,000 in assets. You can have both Medi-Cal and Medicare. And as I said, many adults with disabilities in their 30s, 40s, and beyond end up with both. That's also known as Medi-Medi or dual eligible. And there's certain programs designed for that dual population. You can also have private health insurance, such as from an employer, and have Medi-Cal secondary. And then what is IHSS, in-home supportive services? So this is a California-only benefit. This is not a federal benefit. And you have to be on Medi-Cal first in order to get IHSS. So even if you're never going to go see a Medi-Cal paid doctor, you may still want to get your adult child eligible for Medi-Cal just so you can qualify for IHSS. So it's a program that pays caregivers to work in someone's home. It's anywhere from $16 an hour all the way up to $19.64 in LA County. San Francisco County is also pretty high. The County Department of Social Service decides how many hours based on someone's what they call activity of daily living. So these are really basic functions of getting out of bed, going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, eating breakfast, taking a shower. So they're going to come in and evaluate the person if they can do those tasks by themselves. And then each person gets so many hours a day and then so many hours a month. The maximum you can get per month is 283 hours. The good thing is family members can be paid care providers. But the problem is, let's say someone needs assistance going to the restroom. and they go to the restroom 4 or 5 times a day. Well, most people are gonna go to the restroom over a course of 12 or 24 hours, not in a 5 hour period. But let's say you only get 4 or 5 hours a day, but you still need assistance going to the toilet at other times. So that's where having a trust fund can be very helpful, because you could use your trust money to hire additional in-home staff to supplement those really important IHSS hours. As I mentioned before, Medi-Cal asset limits are changing in California. And so these are the new rules as of January 1st. It's 130,000 is the maximum for a single member household, and then up to 1,000 for each additional household member, up to a maximum of 2 members. So if you find yourself having more than $130,000 in assets, we have a good option. We have our first party special needs trust. Somebody just enrolled this week very quickly, and we can enroll people in a matter of 2 or 3 business days if it's needed. There will be new Medicaid work requirements coming, but that's not for another year. January 1st, 2027. And there are supposed to be work exemptions for people with disabilities along with their caregivers. But no one has seen the rules yet. So we're going to be paying a lot of attention and sharing information as soon as we get it about those Medicaid work requirements. So you don't have to be working. You could also be in school. You could be doing volunteer work. You could be doing a self-employment. But they're going to definitely make it harder to get and keep Medicaid in the coming years. And this chart just shows that over time, children with disabilities are entitled to different benefits depending on their ages. And remember, at age 18, adults with disabilities are considered independent, even if they have very severe disabilities. So that's why at age 18, some parents will pursue a limited DD conservatorship. Some people will set up a power of attorney. Some people will do supported decision making. But after the age of 18, parents do not have automatic access to medical records. Again, even if the adult child is severely disabled, you have to do some proactive action in order to be able to keep being the medical and other liaison. And SSI, people getting SSI and IHSS can also get CalFresh. That's what we call food stamps in California. The federal poverty level is a little higher for this than some other benefits. So it's 200% a federal poverty level, which is about $30,000. And if a disabled adult child over the age 18 is living at home with parents, that adult child has to be over the age of 22 to apply. All right, I'm going to stop here and just see what questions are in chat. If you don't, I don't see too many questions.
No questions for Michelle?
Happy, or if you want to raise your hand, or otherwise, I'll take a sip and keep going. Okay. All right. If you have questions, please go ahead. Type them into chat. Don't be shy. I'll keep going. How do you keep all these benefits? So there's 2 main tools.
So I had a question.
And a Cal-able account. Oh, Daniel, you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick before we move further. With respect to the SSDI and the 50% and then the 75%, does the adult child maintain their SSI maximum amount as well as that 50%, or is the SSI deducted that 50% of the parents' SSDI?
So it's deducted. So some people, if the SSDI is too high, I think it's around 1,600. If the it's the same as the sustainable gainful activity. If the SSDI is too high, you'll lose your SSI altogether. But you can still keep getting Medi-Cal, but it'll be a different form of Medi-Cal.
Because with the example thank you, with the example you gave, it would 50% of the, say, 1,200 would be 600. That'd be substantially less than the,
Right.
say,
So
for
yeah,
today's general, $1,280 something that would be coming in. It would, you get to choose whether or not
no, you don't get to choose.
they just
So,
automatically get it.
so yeah, you would get the SSDI first, and then the SSI would supplement it.
All right.
But I think the average SSDI is around 1,200. So I probably should make my numbers a little make my numbers higher. But at around 1,600, that's where you're going to have the dividing line.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good question. Matt, hi Matt.
Hi, it's been a while. Nice to see you. Can a minor child qualify for SSI? Obviously disabled minor
Yeah.
child qualify?
Yes, but they're going to look at the parents under the age of 18. They look at the parents' assets. So the parents cannot have more than 3,000 in assets.
Oh, okay. That sounds.
That's the problem. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's why now the weird thing is, right, the kid has the same disability they had at 10 years old that they have at 18. But like on their 18th birthday, it's like magic. They're all of a sudden independent, emancipated, unless you proactively, go to probate court and get a conservatorship, or you create a power of attorney, or you do
Emancipation.
supported decision making.
Oh, okay.
So-
And for Medi-Cal, it's the same thing. It's the parents. For minor children, it's the parents' income that qualifies or disqualifies them. Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
No, it's a good question. So that's why I encourage people when their kids turn 18 to create that lease agreement and start charging some rent, even though nothing has changed. Really nothing has changed, but it's an important distinction. And like I said, when you have the paper documents, it just makes it so much easier to deal with the government agencies, and even in some cases, the health insurance. So how can you keep all those benefits and then also be able to get an inheritance or a legal settlement?
Michelle, we have two more questions while we're paused.
okay.
Sorry. We have, is it better to have a conservatorship or a power of attorney?
It totally depends on the circumstances. So generally the conservatorships are for people who are considered legally incompetent, people who would not be legally competent to sign a contract or make medical decisions for themselves. Power of attorney, you have more flexibility. So the power of attorney, you could give away some of the powers. And actually, even with the limited DD conservatorship, there are some options there as well. But it really gets down to legal competency. So if the person is legally competent, the recommendation would be to do a power of attorney. And by the way, everyone over the age of 18 should actually have a power of attorney, because anybody, God forbid, could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And you want someone to be able to pay your bills and someone to be able to help you, with medical decisions, although that's a separate healthcare directive. But people over the age of 18 need to actually designate someone to pay their bills and someone to help with healthcare decisions. Maya.
Thank you. Yeah, with the question from Matthew about how they decide. Social Security, I understand when they turn 18, it's now their individual income. If they have a conservatorship, does that change what income they're looking at?
That's an interesting question, but no, the conservator, it does not necessarily have money over the person. The conservator is making decisions
Okay.
about where the person lives, who the person can marry and have sexual
Mhm.
contacts with, where they can go to school, access to confidential education and medical records, ability to make contracts. So
Got
the
it.
conservator of the person is really about making life decisions. It would only come into play, may it conservator of the estate. But in that case, it implies that the beneficiary, the conservatee, has money, right? You wouldn't become conservator of the estate unless the conservatee had funds. So
Mhm.
for most cases, when someone turns 18, most of our adults with disability don't have a lot of money in their own name. So we're looking at just conservator of the person.
Right. And so then they would still be eligible for SSI probably. Okay.
And more importantly, right, to your point, they're only looking at the income and assets of the
Of that
beneficiary,
person.
not
Right.
of the parent.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And I know this is really tricky when you fill out the forms. You have to fill out as a parent, right? You have to fill out like the Medi-Cal redetermination and SSI. You have to fill them out as though you're in your adult child's shoes, right? How much money is in that adult child's bank account, in their checking account, other assets. Were there any other questions, Alexandra?
Honestly, yeah, we started out with none and
Okay,
now
let me
everybody's
stop for a second. Okay.
um so Lori, this is more of a personal question, so I'm not sure we can't always answer questions about individual situations, but my son who's 22 and not on SSI had Medi-Cal through Westside Regional Center, but now they are not approving him. Is there a way to keep his Medi-Cal?
So he must have had something called institutional deeming. So there's many different types of Medi-Cal. So he should qualify under another type of Medi-Cal, but there might be co-pays and share of costs. So you
Um,
can call
yeah.
you should definitely get in touch with the LA County Department of Social Services and reapply for another type of Medi-Cal.
Marianne reminded us, very important, that low-cost conservatorships are available through Bethesda. Polk wanted to know, can you have both power of attorney and conservatorship?
Can you have no, no. And I'll explain why. So power of attorney, somebody who is legally competent signs a power of attorney form saying, if I should become incompetent, if I should become, unconscious or in a coma, I am designating someone else to, pay my bills or deal with medical issues. With a conservatorship, there's actually something called a capacity declaration. So with a conservatorship, you actually have to prove that the person is not legally competent. So you have to pick one or the other based on that individual. And yeah, Beth said it can certainly provide some assistance. You can get some legal assistance through the regional center, through something called Coordinated Family Services. But you really do have to make a choice.
Um, so Velvet wants to know, IHSS is paid for, if IHSS is paid for by Medi-Cal, if they take that away, they take Medi-Cal away, how would IHSS be paid for? Or
Yeah, if you Cal, you lose the IHSS.
and then Daniel, do you have another question?
Yes, just quickly, I get a little confused on the food aspect of what you were talking about. So we do charge our son and I put it in the notation when I transfer funds from his account to mother's account. I put it as room and board and a certain number, call it 800. Is that fine with respect to SSI when they review the bank account?
Yeah, I would probably just make it room, to be honest.
So should we not charge for his share of food?
The problem is they can start asking you, a lot of questions about it. Now, is he getting SSI?
Oh, shit.
He is, and when, we do the 2-year review, they ask what is the rent, so that they know that number. So they know specifically that we had said, I think it was 600, so 200 is going for the food for the month. So it's been established because they want to establish
Well,
what the,
if it's established, that's fine. It's just, 200. I'm just saying, I think it's probably more realistic to make a room rental these days 800. And then to plan on using SSI money to pay for food.
understood. Okay, thank you.
Okay, but good questions, everybody. All right, we're gonna jump back in. Now, because now we're getting into the trust. So if you want your child to inherit money from a grandparent, aunt, uncle, yourself at some point, it's recommended to set up a special needs trust or at least have a CalAble account. So special needs trusts are legal instruments that allow a person with a medically identified disability to keep all these government benefits and then also be able to access money that's in their trust. But there's some really important rules about these special needs trusts. Once money is in the trust, it has to stay there. And so it's irrevocable, so it cannot be broken. So once the money is in there for Debbie, you can't take it out to use for Debbie's grandma's cancer treatment. And it also can only be used for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. This is super important. The money can only be used for that adult child, not for parents and not for other household members. You can, let's say you're going on a trip and the adult child needs somebody for either behavior reasons or for activities of daily living, more physical needs. The trust funds could be used to pay for, let's say, the airplane ticket for a parent. But the money in the trust cannot be used for all 5 members of the family to, fly to Vegas or go to Disney. But there's a lot of positives about the special needs trust because again, it's like a tax shelter. It's a safe harbor and it's recognized by the government programs as long as it's a valid trust. It does let you have access to your income in the trust that comes from investments as well as the principal. All right. Let me advance. Okay. Now, there are 2 main types of special needs trust. First party, which you want to avoid, which is assets that end up belonging directly to the beneficiary and the beneficiary's Social Security. So those usually happen, let's say somebody's 50 years old, they have SSI and Medi-Cal, they get in a car accident, and they end up with $50,000. They want to keep their SSI. SSI doesn't let you have more than $2,000. So they're going to need to put that $50,000 legal settlement into a first party special needs trust. But, and this is a big but, after that person passes away, Medi-Cal will come to that person's estate and say, we need to be paid back through Medi-Cal recovery for all of the money that we paid out for doctor's visits, hospitalizations, in-home supportive service. So now we also, this first party also arises when someone just gets an inheritance. So grandparents pass away, they have 6 kids, 6 grandkids. They say, we want our money to be evenly divided among all 6 of our grandkids, which is very nice and loving. But one of those grandkids, let's say in regional center on the spectrum and over the age of 18, getting SSI and Medi-Cal and CalFresh. And so that what would happen with that adult child is they would have to set up a first party trust. And after he or she passes away, the money, instead of staying in the family, as you know, the grandparents would have wanted, the state of California is going to be paid for. So how do we avoid that? We would have the grandparents in their will or their own family estate, they would have designated that money for that grandchild would only be given through a special needs trust set up for the grandchild. So, and it has to be done before death. You cannot do it retroactively. You can't say, well, the grandparents really wanted the money, to go into a special needs trust. Again, unless it was in writing, unless it was in an estate plan, in a will, or in a family trust, it does not exist. Somebody's good intentions do not matter. It has to have been in writing following legal protocol. And then there's the third party trust, which is what I'm going to encourage parents here to set up ahead of time. So that way, when parents, grandparents, and uncles pass away, money goes into a third party special needs trust for Debbie. Debbie gets that money. And when Debbie passes away, money left over can stay in the family. For regional center families, encouraging you to plan ahead, even though the regional centers can take care of a lot of things and pay for many things. It's very important to know regional center funds can never be used for rent. So even in a group home situation, the adult child's SSI or SSDI payment pays for the rent. So if you want somebody to have a decent place to live, they're going to need very likely some money from a trust, because as we see, the SSI or the SSD money is usually not going to be enough to cover rent anywhere decent, in Southern California. There is a new service code in the regional center system called Coordinated Family Support, CFS, under program code 076. At your next IPP, individual program plan meeting, especially if you're trying to plan ahead for the future, you can ask for services under that code. And people in self-determination can also ask for funds for future planning. And there are some new services that are going to be coming along for regional center clients over the age of 45. So, which is good, because regional centers for a long time have been really focused on the little ones, because there was such an explosion, especially with autism. But, people are getting older. They're living longer, which is great due to medical advances. And so there's more and more regional center clients who are now over the age of 45. So now we're finally kind of getting to the meat of all this. What is a pool trust? Known as a D4C in Social Security Code. They were created by Congress back in 1993. And what they said is, we want a way for middle-class families to be able to have professional trustee services, also known as fiduciary services. So nonprofits can become pool trusts. They have to create a master trust, which is like a big umbrella trust document. And then individuals join using a legal agreement called a joinder agreement. Every client has his or her own account, and we only pool money for investment and cash management purpose. So is a pool trust a good option for your family or for your clients? Well, it's going to be lower setup fees. If you go to a trust and estate attorney and ask them to set up a special needs trust, they're going to charge you anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000. So we charge for anywhere from $600 to $1,300, depending if it's active or inactive. And I'm a professional licensed fiduciary, as is my colleague Ron Parks. So when you work with us, you're going to be getting the same high level of fiduciary trustee services that you would get if you had $5 million at Wells Fargo Trust or BNY Mellon or any of the big trust groups in town. We offer an active first party trust. Again, this is only when money comes in as kind of a surprise. from a legal settlement or an unplanned inheritance. An active third-party trust. That's with at least $20,000. And then for most parents who have younger kids and they don't have $20,000 to deposit with us, we have something called our future funded option. I like to say you're setting up the empty vessel. So imagine that this glass is empty. That's what a future funded trust is. And then at a later date, typically a sad event, someone's passing, there's going to be life insurance money, IRA money, a 401k money, brokerage accounts. So all of those assets would then get poured into the future funded trust, and it becomes an active third-party trust. Once the money is in the trust, what can you do with it? Well, you can do a lot, almost anything that's legal. But we're talking about services and products that improve wellness, optimize independence, and enhance overall quality of life. So these are some examples of how clients use money that's in their trust. You know, technology is so important to all of us. So cell phone, internet, clothes, furniture, laptops, personal care, specialized therapies that aren't covered by Medi-Cal, Medicare, or regional center. Again, dental expenses. So many of our clients come in with really bad teeth, and especially I'm talking middle-aged people who need like $20,000 worth of implants. So that is an excellent use of trust funds. Can also be used for any kind of education or vocational training. And then, you know, fun stuff like trips and vacations, including paying for an aid, and in-home help that supplements the government IHSS out. And even a car or a residence, provided there's enough funds to pay for everything. We have a partnership with a high-tech company called TrueLink based in San Francisco. And they're the ones managing the investments, and they're also the ones kind of doing the back office work of figuring out how many units of investment portfolios each one of our clients has. And they have a total of $2 billion of assets under management. And they pioneered this amazing Visa debit card that our clients have and enjoy using. And so this debit card is individualized for every client, or we can open and close Visa categories. So for example, we always close gambling and casinos, and we always open up pharmacy and medical. But the card is personalized and individualized for each client. And then at the end, I just want to very briefly touch on CalAble. So this is another way to set aside money for someone with a disability so they can keep getting SSI and Medi-Cal. So it's a federal program, was created on the federal level, and then different states created their own program. In California, it's called CalAble. It operates out of the California State Treasurer's Office in Sacramento. It's run, it's only online. You cannot open an account at any bank, and you can't go to any bricks and mortar place. But you can save up to $20,000 in tax year 2026. And you could, over 5 years, you could go all the way to $100,000 and still keep SSI. And then you could go all the way to $529,000 and keep Medicaid. So it used to be that you had to have been medically diagnosed before the age of 26. That changed just 2 weeks ago on January 1st. So now it's up to age 46. These are based on the 529 college savings account. But there are some differences. Only one ABLE account per Social Security number, and the beneficiary is always an account owner. It could be opened by any authorized legal representative, including power of attorney or rep payee. And then money that's put into an ABLE account can also be used for many of the same categories we talked about before. food, education, housing, transportation, healthcare expenses. And to sign up for Count Able, you have to do it online. You only need to have $25, but you have to link it to a bank account. And this is the URL to do that. And in some cases, Medi-Cal can seek recovery after the beneficiary passes, but it has to meet all these criteria. The deceased Medi-Cal member was over 55. The estate of that Medi-Cal member was over 185,000. That person received services like skilled nursing facility or IHSS, and there's no surviving spouse, registered domestic partner, child under 21, or disabled child. And there's also a hardship waiver available. So not that many people with ABLE accounts will end up having money recovered after they pass. The good news is ABLE accounts and special needs trusts can work together really nicely. You can transfer money back and forth without any fees or penalties. There are some advantages to using the ABLE accounts to pay for rent, particularly for folks who are very high functioning. They might want to be able to have more direct control over their ABLE funds. With a trust, the trustee has to maintain sole discretion over the funds at all times. So you do have to get pre-approval for spending from the trustee, and you don't have to get pre-approval with an ABLE account. So the big picture is there should be 3 accounts for adults with disabilities, a personal checking account that's going to accept the government payments and work earnings if they're low, a Count Able account when that checking account gets near $2,000, and also work earnings. And then a third-party special needs trust. If nothing else, think of it like a retirement fund for somebody with disabilities. Okay, and I know it was a lot. There's a lot of great information on our website. Like I said, we have other recordings. Here's my email and phone number. I encourage you to email, not call, and we can set up a meeting if you want to discuss some things a little bit more. All right, we can take a few questions.
All right. Is a third-party trust considered a resource for the individual's SSI determination?
No, not if it is a legitimate third-party special needs trust that meets all the social security criteria.
If I have an IRA account, can I make the disabled person's JLA trust account the beneficiary of that IRA account?
Yeah, it's a little tricky. IRAs are tricky they can be a little tricky to roll over, but yes.
Regarding the irrevocable component of the special needs trust, does that only apply to withdrawing money? In other words, can other areas of the trust be changed, such as property?
No. No, that's the thing about a special needs trust. So if you put a house, if you titled a house, for the EIN number of a third-party special needs trust, you could not take out that property.
If an adult disabled child who is a regional center consumer only receives Medi-Cal benefits, should a regular trust be considered instead of a special needs trust?
If an adult is what do you mean regular trust? Oh, I see what you're saying. Like a spendthrift trust. Well, what I say to people is maybe your adult child only is getting Medi-Cal now, but what about down the road? What about like Section 8 voucher, which is really helpful for affordable housing? Because for Section 8, they have new rules. And one of the new rules is if you want the person to be able to have more than 100,000 in assets, it needs to be in an irrevocable trust. So the problem with putting those funds in a regular trust is down the road, that person may still end up having to do a first party trust. And again, any remainders will not stay with the family. But I recommend, Robin, that you talk to a trust and estate attorney about that question, because you have to really drill down into like what are the family's assets and what's the overall estate plan, and it can get very complicated with each family.
Will we get a copy of the slideshow? That's a question for me. Yes. Is there a limit on the amount of money in a special needs trust?
Nope, could have 20 million bucks and still get the government debt.
Our family trust attorney warns us not to allow our daughter to get married. Please comment regarding the safety of her investments.
So, it depends if she's getting SSI and she marries somebody who is not getting SSI, she will lose her SSI, which is what they call the marriage penalty. Advocates have been trying to get rid of this for quite some time, but for right now, the marriage penalty exists. If two people with SSI marry each other, and they're each allowed to have $2,000. When they get married, they're only allowed to have $3,000 together. So that may be, those might be some of the concerns from your attorney. There's also concerns sometimes with people with disabilities getting taken advantage of through marriage. So that's why in the powers under the limited DD conservatorship, one of the powers is the right to get married, or permission to get married. I shouldn't say right. Permission to get married. So it's complicated.
Can you have two trusts, a first party trust and a third party trust?
Yeah, you can certainly have. We can certainly have both, and we have many clients who have both, but because money came in from different buckets, so that's fine. If someone has both a first and a third party, we're going to always spend down that first party first, because remember, we're trying to keep that third party. We're trying to keep that for family wealth transfer. Now, I do want to say with our pool trust, with our third party, we in our master trust, we do retain 10% to keep for charitable purposes. So that means if someone has a third party trust with us and they pass away and there's 100,000 left, we will retain 10,000 for that charitable use, and then the remaining 90,000 will go to the named heirs in the joinder document. Can an individual be both a trustee and a beneficiary? No. So with a trust, typically you have a beneficiary, that's the person who is benefiting from the money in the trust. And then you have the trustee who is making the decisions about the money in the trust on behalf of the beneficiary. That's the whole thing about a trust. That's why the government allows them, because all of the money decisions rest with the trustee, not with the beneficiary. So it's important to keep in mind that a trust becomes its own legal entity with its own EIN number. So that's why it's treated as a separate thing from the person with their Social Security. I know it gets very complicated. Other questions?
I have a question.
Daniel? Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle, what is the future plan for JLA, say 30 to 40 years from now? What keeps JLA solvent?
I'm glad you asked. I hope to be retired at some happy point in the future. So we're a nonprofit. So we have a board of directors, just like any other nonprofit. So, the board of directors will be the ones, down the road hiring, subsequent executive directors, and then the executive director hires, the rest of the staff. So that's the administrative part. In terms of solvency, I mean, it's really about bringing in enough money, right, to pay for our operating expenses. So we are 10 years old this year. We opened our doors in 2016, and we now have about 14, and we started with zero. So right now we have about $14.5 million, and we have 227 full trusts. So, I mean, we initially did a business plan, and LA County has the highest number of people with SSI in the entire country. So we know that we have not even reached the tiniest sliver of people who could use our services. So we anticipate growing over the next 10, 20, and 30 years, and with enough people enrolled in the pool trust, the fees, services, and these remainders will keep us solvent. So as an example, there's a pool trust in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin has less people in the whole state than we have in LA County, and they have something like 4,000 pool trust accounts. So we have a long way to go to reach full sustainability, but we also have we have such a huge potential target audience. But it's a good question, and let's say things go back, things turn upside down. Money in the pool trust could be transferred to another pool trust. So even let's say our bank account goes to zero as a nonprofit, the money that's sitting in those investment accounts for the beneficiaries could be transferred over to another pool trust and another trustee. And that has happened. There have been some pool trusts that went out of business for different reasons.
Thank you.
Yes, and Matthew Millen, his client was our client F003. And that was like 10 years ago. So we've definitely grown, and we anticipate continued growth. Are we the only public trust organization? No, we have other pool trusts, and we encourage you to do your due diligence. There is one that was created by the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, NAMI, called Proxy Parent Foundation. And they were originally based in Orange County. I'm not sure where they're headquartered now. There's also one in the Bay Area called Golden State. Golden State typically is looking for higher asset amounts than us. But by the way, we do enroll people who live anywhere in the state of California. So, but we cannot enroll people who are currently living outside the state. Now, if you enroll with us and the beneficiary moves out of state, we can keep providing. So to answer your question, Sunny, right now we are only serving California residents because it's a pretty big population in California. And also, I just feel like it's so hard to keep on top of all the changes in California rules and laws and trying to do that for another state. We're just not quite ready to do that. So we are California only. Lori's asking, how do you find out if a special needs trust is first party trust or third party? It would be in the trust document. It should say in the underlying trust document. Any other question? Wow, people hung in there. It's 4:40. Very impressive.
One more question. Do special needs trusts file tax returns?
Yes, so you do have to, you should file a tax return because there are potential capital gains from the investment income. The thing is, most of our clients have very low income, And most of our clients don't have that much money in their trust. So whatever they're making in capital gains is going to typically be below the standard deduction. So most of our clients do not owe any taxes. Now, if they do owe taxes, that can be paid out of the trust account, and the cost of tax preparation can also be paid out of the trust account. So when the settler, that would be the parents or grandparents, when the settler turns over money into the third-party trust, the trust account is taxed, not the settler who gave that money. Thank you, Carol. That's quite an endorsement. I really appreciate it. We're working hard. We're working, and some clients are easier than others, but we're really proud of what we've built together with a wonderful team. Anything else? Okay, I think we're gonna call it an evening so everybody can go on and have dinner and do what else you were planning for this evening. And thank you so much for being here and asking such good questions. Thank you so much.